Good evening and welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm your host, Joshua Solomon, and with me, as always, is the Honorable J.P. Marzullo. How you doing, J.P.?
Good. A lot of excitement on Tuesday.
Yeah.
I like the interesting picks today.
Yeah.
It should be fun for all of us.
So, JP, as you know, while you're away, I always remind the viewers that you're out rounding up commies.
I did a pretty good job, I think.
Throwing them over the border into Massachusetts.
Yeah, and it's working.
Now, I gave you 2 full weeks off.
They're not cleared up.
The election, and we still voted for Kamala. So.
Oh no!
If I don't start seeing some results here,
I know.
we're gonna have to take away your time off.
Okay. Yeah. What are you drinking?
Dock your pay, too.
Dock my pay. Yeah, I'll give you half of my pay to do this.
All right, folks. Tonight we have our guest, Senator-elect Victoria Sullivan. How you doing, Victoria?
Hey, I did a Pat McAfee thing.
Getting used to that title. Well, that's interesting.
That's really cool. What an upset.
It was an upset. We were talking about it last week, myself and Terry.
And Terry Roy, yeah.
I love Terry.
That it was an upset, and I was saying, you know,
Listen,
you were.
No one was more surprised than me.
Well, maybe Donna was.
Well, maybe. So I was at home that night. I didn't go to any parties.
Drinking wine and having some cheese. I saw your post.
My husband gave me a glass of wine, and I had my dog, and I was like all cuddled in for the night with a blanket. And,
let's go to sleep.
And I had my shock blanket on. But I got the results from Litchfield kind of early, which was surprising because for the primary they came in last, right? So I got them first, and we beat her by 700 points, 700 votes, which was good, but I didn't know if it was good enough because we knew there were challenging wards in Manchester, right? Ward 9, since they changed the boundary line, they have not had a Republican win there in a couple of years. Wards 5 and 7 are always tough for Republicans, and we needed 6 and 8, but she's won 6 and 8 before. 6 is Donna's home ward, and she has won 8 in the past. So we were like watching the numbers come in, and we had Litchfield, and then Ward 6 came in, and I won Ward 6 by 100 votes. I'm like,
that was her.
That's her home ward, right?
Yeah.
So that was good, but was 100 votes enough to cover 5 and 7, and what might happen in 9, right? And then 5 came in, and 7 came in, and we lost those, and we knew we would, and we weren't devastated by it. It was a respectable margin. And then Tammy, Simmons Garthwaite, who basically ran my campaign. She called me because she was getting all the numbers. She was at Murphy's getting all the numbers. She called me. She said, "Are you sitting down?" I'm like, "Yep." She goes, "You won Ward 9." And I went, "What is happening?"
What's Ward 9? What is that?
That's my ward.
That's your ward.
But we had lost it to the Democrats when they changed the
boundaries.
ward line.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
So I didn't win it by a lot, but I won it. And then we were waiting for Ward 8 to come in, and it was all hinging on Ward 8, which usually goes Republican, but she has won it in the past. So everything was hinging on Ward 8, and Ward 8 didn't come in until after 1 o'clock in the morning. And everyone's calling me. Joe Lavasser called me. He's like, "Go down to Memorial High School." And I said, "I'm not going to be able to beat the results out of them. They're in when they're in." So I was just I actually went to bed. I just went to bed. It was late. It was a long day. And then Will Infantine called me and said, "You won." And I said, "I haven't seen 8. He said, "I have. You won." And he sent it to me. And then my phone didn't stop for 2 hours. And I got up. Awesome. I told my son, I'm like, "I won." He's like, "I heard, Mom." Because he was asleep. I opened the door a little bit, let him know. And so it was pretty cool. It was, then I was wired. I couldn't get to sleep.
Of course.
And then, so that was it. My job starts pretty early, so I just rolled back right into work mode.
Yeah. So Terry and I were talking. You're a former state rep, and you've done a lot of work in the community in Manchester, and you've run for mayor a couple of times. You've run for some other positions, and you're just relentless, right? And you at one point you were getting crap from the other side. Well, how many times does she want to lose, right? I mean, these people are being really nasty to you over the last few years. Even when you weren't running for something, but you were advocating for something that you believed in.
Yeah.
And Terry and I just agreed. It's because she believes in what she's doing. She has faith in the things that she's volunteering for, and that persistence is what led to this.
Yeah, and when people would say, Democrats say Donald Trump is so mean, like you have no room to say how mean Donald Trump is when Ray Buckley is the chairman of your organization, that you continue to vote him to lead, because he is really such a mean-spirited person, and it's not just me that he goes after, but some reason he has a special place in his heart for me, and yeah, so but they wouldn't count the primaries that I won every time I had a primary, I won the primary, or that I was a sitting state representative for 2 terms, or that I was a selectman in the city of Manchester. They don't count those things. And it was just because they wanted me to feel defeated, and that's not who I am.
But that's exactly what it is.
Right?
Yeah.
That's just not who I am.
So they don't know your middle name or your maiden name then.
Right.
Right.
Wojciech. So I'm a little bit Polish.
Yeah, so do you think you're going to back off?
And the
No.
word tenacity comes up a lot with the Poles.
Yeah.
And, that's just, but like you said, I believe in it. And they really did try to turn me into the devil incarnate over the years.
Yes.
Like, they really twisted my voting record, or things that I would say. And we saw them do it with President Trump over and over again. But they really do it on the local level,
Sure.
too. And so we just decided.
I think it's nastier at the local level.
I think it is,
I really
too.
do.
Because this is where you live.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So we just decided that this whole election was going to be about just letting people, reintroducing myself to people.
Right.
I did an op-ed that the
And that-
union
that
leader
did it,
published,
I think.
and he titled it "Please Allow Me to Reintroduce Myself." So the little, the title was catchy, and which is sympathy for the devil. So I'm not sure if that totally worked in my favor, but it allowed me to go back and say, hey, listen, regardless of the chatter, this is who I am, because I was knocking on doors and people were saying, oh, you're Victoria Sullivan. I'm like, well, wait a minute. And if I could get them to engage me, they realized who I really was, what I
Right.
really believed, what my policies were, and we were really aligned.
That's always the case. That's the case with every single time we have a Democrat on this show who has engaged with Republicans, right? I mean, Gary said it all the time. He would go and engage, and people would come back and say, "Wait a minute, you're not the evil person we were led to believe you were."
Right.
Yeah.
So we just kept concentrating. Like, my slogan was commitment to community, and I spent a lot of time in Litchfield. I grew up in a small town, so I felt really connected. Found out I've got family there. There's actually one of the families that lives there. Like, I went to school with the husband. So that was cool. And then a lot of the families that my kids started school with here had moved to Litchfield. So I did have a community there, and I felt very welcome and comfortable there. They campaign very differently. They don't so much like the door knocking. So I just leave Lit because I caught on. But I'd go to the dump every Saturday.
Yeah, exactly.
So if they needed to meet me or wanted to talk to me, I was there. I had literature there. So I spent a lot of time in Litchfield going to events and meetings. And we knew we needed Litchfield, but I also needed Litchfield to know that I was listening to them, because I feel like they were ignored the whole time that they had Donna Soucy as their senator. Right?
Yeah.
You never heard her talk about Litchfield or go to Litchfield. And I made a promise to them. Like, I've already reached out to Ray Peoples, who just was elected as state rep there, who's very involved in the town politics.
Great.
And I said, anything I need to attend, any issue that's pressing that I should pay attention to, any events that are happening, just let me know.
What I
Just keep me in
loved
the
is
know.
on Veterans Day, you were with veterans.
I was.
And that was awesome. You were with Roland.
I was with Roland.
And I haven't
Roland
seen
Six.
him forever.
I know.
He kind of disappeared. Roland Six is his name.
Yep, he and Mrs. Six.
Right.
So I walked in there. I had a few
That
people
was
that
cool.
I knew.
Yep.
This gentleman named Stan that is there. He's one of my Polish people.
Yeah.
Got me on the hook for $40 worth of pierogies coming up at the church. So
Oh my God.
I ordered my yearly trays of pierogies. He's like, I got the 4. But
Oh my
those
God.
are Manchester things, like
Yeah.
the little community things that you
Sure.
catch on here. Even
The
though
other
it's a
thing
city.
is, you didn't really need to win, 100% in those towns that Soucy wins. You had to just take a certain percentage, and I think that's what you did, because I looked at some of the numbers other and said, well, she really didn't need to win that. She just needed to make it miserable for Donna Soucy.
Yeah.
Is that the way you looked at it?
So like for
Because-
5 and 7, I just needed to close the gap there.
Yeah.
Like, that's really all. We weren't going to win
Right.
I mean, you can win in 7. We got a Republican that won in 5, but she lives there, so it's much harder in 5 and 7. And so I just want to mitigate the damage sort of in those wards and really concentrate on 6 and 8, 9. I really wanted to win my ward back because it's been a couple of years.
I've given her hints on the next one. Stop it.
Well, here's the thing, though. Like, while I was concentrating on sort of reintroducing myself to people and we walked 3 to 4 miles a day.
Wow.
Right. And there were times like Mark Warden picked me up and he'd drive and I'd jump. So I got a little break on those days where I was just, got a little bit of a ride. But we worked, I worked with Mark Warden and Mark McLean and John Morton. And I really tried to work with everybody, Kathy Paquette.
Yep.
I tried to work with everybody that was running in Manchester in the state rep races because we just didn't have a lot of volunteers this time around for some reason. I think COVID really hurt the sort of drive to get out and do things. We're still recovering from that, I think. So we really had to rely on each other to sort of, for the legwork.
I'd like to kind of address that. I think that people were exhausted about the way our country was going.
I think so.
I think they were tired of it, didn't want to hear any more about it, didn't want to see anything else. They were done with it.
Yeah.
They just wanted to wait till the 5th showed up so they could vote and change everything.
Yeah.
And yet you look at the Democrats now and they continue to think they're going to stop the president. They're so nasty. It's like they're setting up a loss for them in 2028.
I hope so.
They're doing things. They're trying to Trump-proof the White House. There's executive orders. Jack Smith, he's committed a whole bunch of crimes during his investigation, and now he's going to resign before Trump can fire him. But in the meantime, they're doing a lot of shredding. They're shredding everything.
Yeah, I agree.
And then, we're not helping ourselves with today the Senate GOP voted for Thune as their leader to replace Mitch. So they're replacing one rhino with another, and so we have to be vigilant because they are setting things up, and they know that the rhinos are going to go along and
I'm not sure that's true this time
bit.
Because with Trump there.
On the other hand, you get Getz as an attorney general, and things are on fire now.
Right.
I was hoping Trey Gowdy would get that.
Trey has indicated that he's not really interested in the job, but he would be excellent.
He would be fantastic.
He would be. So, but anyway, what I'm saying is that we still need to be vigilant because there's a lot that can still go wrong between now and January 20th, and that's just on the federal side. We got a lot of things that can still go wrong here in New Hampshire.
Well, I think
we've got a larger majority in both houses, but we have to be very vigilant on what our plans are here.
I think one of the reasons too we got the majorities here is because we continued to knock doors and do the grassroots thing and listen and as much I kept hashtagging defeat the deceit because I felt like they were so deceitful in everything they were saying, from abortion to I saw signs that said Kelly Ayotte will raise your property taxes. Like they flipped the script on us kind of. And it was so bizarre.
Accuse your opponent of the things that you're doing.
And I think they lied so much that people got sick of it and started to see through it, right?
Yeah.
But I also think they were so busy. Like Donna Soucy was not in her district. Occasionally she'd take a picture somewhere
after you were there
with some bushes and pretend she was somewhere, but
she had to keep driving up from Massachusetts to take those pictures.
Well, she was stumping for Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Right. So she was in Milford. She was like all over the state, and she was stumping for Kamala Harris, and she wasn't talking to her constituents.
Of course not.
And they noticed. They really did notice that, and I helped them notice it, but they really. Like I said, I feel like a lot of people, especially Litchfield, felt like they had been sort of discarded. But then you had in Ward 6 in 2022, they had that recount with Larry Gagne and Maxine
that was
Mosley.
a tie, right?
And so, it wasn't a tie. Larry won by 23 votes, and they wanted a recount, which is within their right.
Yep.
And during the recount, something happened, and they stopped it. And the numbers were off, right? So Donna Soucy and Maxine Mosley went to the state and they filed an injunction to stop the recount. If they stopped the recount where it was, Maxine would have won.
Right.
Right? So she really tried to disenfranchise her own voters in her own ward because the outcome wasn't trending to what she wanted it to be.
Right.
So I think that hurt her in her ward because people don't like that. They want their votes counted. Let's have it play out. And it really was some nasty politics.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's come down here now. I mean, all that nastiness that we went through for the last 4 years, I don't think it started here, but I think it was brought here.
Yeah.
Just look at Maureen Daly in Mass. I mean, she came up here and was with Craig. The thing that was amazing to me, there was very seldom a time when Craig was alone.
No.
When she was, where you would see Kelly run into places and,
it was always Massachusetts people. Like
Yes.
they had the Massachusetts unions coming up here.
Right.
And
Right.
I don't know if people realize that. So when I ran against Joyce for mayor, she raised over $500,000 for a mayor's position that pays, I think, $64,000 or something. And that was all about the choo-choo train.
Right.
They wanted the train to come up here, the commuter rail. So you saw all the union folks coming up here because they want the commuter rail. You saw Maura Healey and the Massachusetts government up here because they wanted us to pay for the MBTA commuter rail
Right.
that would have been, just taking care of a small part of southern New Hampshire. It would have been $1 billion to get going, $20 million a year to keep up. We would have had to implement a tax to pay for it because the fares weren't going to pay for all of it, and it would help with the burden of what is the MBTA because they would be running it here. We wouldn't be running it.
Right.
So it was really all about the train. So I'm sure Joyce is in hot water right now because that train didn't go through. Kelly has made it clear that we do not need that, can't afford it, and it doesn't benefit us.
No.
The housing that they just built on Queen City Avenue there, that was all for the train station because it was supposed to be
Builders.
there.
Oh, I got it.
Right? So, and what that would have done was allow people that work in Massachusetts who make a lot of money to live here, increasing our apartment rents, which are already really high, and taking the money back out there. So, it's not a good deal for New Hampshire.
No, and Joyce kept saying she, started 2,000 new homes or something. Every time she said that, I thought, well, where are they? I mean, these apartments they're putting up, I don't know whether you call them homes, but I guess you do. But I didn't see that happening.
No, and they're not, none of them are affordable. And that's the thing. Like some of them start at like $3,000 a month, and they want first and last,
That's nuts.
It never set right with me. Every time they say, oh, we're going to build new affordable housing. How can you guarantee that any new building is going to be affordable housing? Because no matter what, you've still got all the construction costs and the labor and the materials, and then all of the regulation that has to go into it. And if it's a multi-unit facility, the inspections and the approvals and the licensing all has to go into it. And there's no way you can't reduce that value, and then you start increasing property taxes, and you give your school board carte blanche to raise taxes without any oversight.
That was their plan.
How is this ever going to be affordable? They have it's not new construction. Well, it's sort of new construction, but they've renovated a couple of mill buildings over in Goffstown Center, right? And it's something I don't know. There's an ungodly number of new apartments.
Yeah.
There's not enough parking over there for all those new apartments, number one. And number two, there's nothing affordable about them. Even though it's being built in an old mill building, we're recycling buildings. The low-end one-bedroom apartment starts at $3,700 a month.
Oh, my God.
I have 2 mortgages on my house, and it's not $3,700 a month.
Exactly.
Right? And I've got a 4-bedroom house on, on an acre of land. So the whole, we're going to build, she may be saying that she, initiated the construction of 2,000 new places to live in Manchester, but there's nothing affordable about it. It's not going to reduce the homeless problem because none of those folks can afford those.
No, they can't. I work with homeless, every day, and there's so much frustration in the fact that they can't find housing. And when I was running, for mayor, part of my plan was to take existing businesses, office buildings, because with COVID, a lot of people are working from home now.
Yep.
And sort of deregulating from City Hall and letting these people have carte blanche to do what they want with their own buildings.
Yeah.
And I hope that's what the Board of Mayor and Aldermen is going to do. We also, talking to a lot of people on the local level, the permitting and the licensing and
all the red tape,
it's
increases
insane.
the cost.
And you get the fire marshal to come in and he says yes, and then you get this building inspector to come in, he says no, then the plumbing guy comes in and says no, then the wiring guy says yes, and they have to, it's like a shell game, right? You need to have a team of like 3 people that they come in, they look at
As a
everything, and they
team,
say, okay, we're all done. This is the list. This isn't the ever-changing list.
Have you talked to
This is the list.
the mayor rather, Jay Roos?
No, I'm sure this is part of what they'll be doing going forward, because they're going to have to, right?
Yeah,
they're going,
I was
because
just
this is what the
curious.
businesses want, and I'm certainly willing to have a conversation with him.
Yeah.
He's getting settled. He's finding his way. He's making some changes, so that's good. I talk to some of the aldermen all the time about things,
good,
and I'm
yeah.
sure now that I'll be on the state level, we'll be working, together
Yep.
to do what we can do for Manchester and for
Yeah.
affordable housing.
I think the people in Manchester should be real happy with that, because in the past, all Craig did was blast Sununu, and
Right.
it was going back and forth all the time.
there will be an
But it was
We
always
will-
about money.
Yeah.
It's like,
Oh, yeah.
I haven't got enough money for this.
Right.
$100 million came back to the state while she was
Yeah.
mayor.
Yeah.
It came back to the city from the state.
Yeah.
So while we're talking about housing and homeless and money, one of the things that took place, I think more than once, or maybe it's an ongoing thing, under Joyce was there were some federal dollars that come in to allow cities to house homeless in hotels.
Yeah.
But that's only like from November through April or at some point. And so my view was that attracted more homeless into the
Yes.
city, because they get a free warm place for the winter, and then when the money runs out in early spring, they're all kicked out onto our streets.
Right.
Is that something that's still going on?
And that was
Is
also-
that something that we can refuse from the feds?
That
or-
was also an issue with the train, because Boston loves to
Oh, yeah,
drop their
they're-
homeless
yeah.
up here.
Oh,
so
yeah.
that would have been a direct
and you
route.
just made it easy
Yeah,
for them.
yeah.
All they
Yeah.
have to do
And
is
the
get a
drug
50-cent
addicts
ticket,
and-
get on the
$12.
train, and
12
boom.
bucks you're in Manchester, It is
That's
still,
how out of touch I am. I think a train ticket is 50 cents, right?
it is still happening.
It's been a long time since I've been a regular commuter on
$14
a
each
subway
way
train.
from Lawrence to Boston. I think it's about 14, because my son takes the train every once in a while. He is spoiled. We pick him up quite a bit, but every once in a while we make him take the train. I get but Mom, I have to bring so much home. His laundry. So there was a plan that businesses were on board with here to get one of the hotels that they would use for the homeless, but it also would have been like, this is your criteria. These are the things you have to do. And this was when Ms. Green was still then she left the city because she was so frustrated by all of it, and the mayor at the time sort of put the kibosh on that, from what I'm told, and that would have been a good plan, because you had the services in where they were living. It wasn't just at the I don't know if people know, but at the shelter, like, they have to leave by 7 a.m. They're in by 7 p.m.
Yep.
There's not really any incentive for them to be able to do anything. We also, people keep asking me about how many illegals are here living in our hotels, and that's a number I have to find. I don't know where that information is, but I have to find it, because people want the
deliberately
answers.
obfuscated.
Yes.
But if you are driving around the city in the morning, you will see children standing outside the hotels waiting for their school bus. So it's absolutely happening. And I don't say that to target children, because they're in the middle. They're always lost in the middle of this. It's never about targeting kids. I'm just saying it's just evidence that there are people living in the hotels that are going to public schools here.
Yeah. I just heard something on the news before it came where, the Doge people, Vivek and Elon Musk.
So we always call my dog the Doge when we don't want him to know we're talking about him. Like, are you gonna take the Doge for WALK? Because those words get
Oh, yeah,
So
so-
now that it's an actual thing, it's gonna be really confusing in my house.
So what they said
it's
was
really good. We got a new government department
I love
of Department of Government Efficiency. So we're creating an entire new branch of government with the express purpose of tearing down the rest of the government.
Yeah, I mean, well, what they said is that we're renting buildings in D.C., okay, we're renting buildings there and nobody's in them. You know, they're working from home or whatever. And they said that's the first thing they want to do is get rid of those buildings, stop renting them, you know, whatever.
Yeah, but the people who own the buildings, they did the right thing in their mind, and they made a 25-year long-term lease. So regardless, you know, they're in a contract. So now you okay, let's figure out how to get out of the contract. Is the penalty for getting out worse or better, right?
And I don't know if that's if they even are taking salaries for that. I can't imagine that they need the salaries.
These two guys, I doubt it.
I don't think that it's going to cost us money. I think we need to have that on the state level. This is going to be a tough budget year.
Yeah, it is.
So all the COVID money has dried out.
Isn't that the executive council? Isn't it?
No, that's the legislature.
That's the legislator.
So the COVID money has dried up.
Yep.
Unfortunately, some of that money was misused. It should never have been used to create jobs or fund employees, and it has been. I know the city did that when Joyce was here. They for example, hired 13 social workers with that money. So there's
and you can't fire people once you hire them.
It's gonna the Republicans are gonna have to show up and take the heat.
Yep.
And be very vocal. This is where they need to use social media. They have to start using it as a party and be vocal and say, this is what we're cutting and this is why. And we understand people are concerned, but it's not going to have the repercussions you think because we're going to cover it this way. And they need to be very vocal and explain to people what they're doing, because otherwise, we've seen this when we've had to do tight budgets before and make cuts. It's, oh my gosh, your grandmother's going to fall down. No ambulance is going to come there to get her. People are going to die in the streets. Oh, the children. And they're going to use all the fear mongering because they have not learned anything from this election cycle. If you look, they're already still fear mongering.
They are.
They are.
Yeah.
So they're going to fear monger, and they're trying to make you think that we're going to starve people to death. But the reality is, you will starve to death if we don't cut the taxes and we don't do responsible spending. Now, when it comes to the Department of Education on the federal level, if Trump really does do away with it, that you're going to have a strong legislature that can decide, okay, so some of that money has been collected. It should come back to us. It should go straight to the taxpayers' pockets. Right? The next year, it shouldn't be collected. So that's what we have to really make sure. They're going to get rid of the Department of Education. Okay, they say they're sending the money back. Okay, that means you're not collecting it from there on out, because government has a hard time not collecting taxes they're used to collecting.
Yeah, once they start taking it.
So they can't reuse it for something else.
Yeah.
You got rid of the department. These funds were collected for that department. Now you're not collecting that from us anymore. And you're going to have a very strong legislature that puts up that sort of boundary and says, no, this is the way it's going to be for our people. I think we have those people in place. I think we're
in New Hampshire.
Yeah, it's the right time, the right place for the Republicans.
I'm not convinced at the federal level that we do, but
I don't know if Trump will do it by executive order, or if it will have to go through the legislature. Obviously, be harder through the legislature.
I think it's going to be a cut and slash. I think it's going to be a gradual reduction, and
so
it could be.
Here's the thing, I tried to get somebody to go along with a bill I wanted to write a while ago. We're only one. I think we may be the only state now where our governor only serves a 2-year term.
Right.
I believe there may be one other state, but I don't recall what it was. Because when you get into after your first year, you have to start looking at campaigning again.
I know.
And that doesn't give. And we're pretty good with people here in that you give them a second chance. All except for Benson. But I mean, if you go back far enough, I think you'll see almost all of the governors had 2 terms. Why don't we just go ahead, have a bill passed to say that, we're going to fall in place.
That's going to be a constitutional amendment, right? Isn't the term set in the Constitution?
I'm not sure. I should know.
I don't
recall.
We should look it up.
Yeah,
if someone at home is watching and give us a call.
Yeah, exactly.
What's your number?
603-698-3233.
Nice.
Is the number if you want to call in and talk to us.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess
like
I should say that on air more often. Right?
Probably.
Maybe somebody would call in if that was.
Wait a minute, I'll call in. But yeah, I mean, I think we can do some other things to, because that's too short a term to start. And same thing with state.
It's hard to get anything done in 2 years.
Yeah,
it really
it
is. And also, it's exhausting to run every 2 years. But we have an economy, so I think this is where you might get the pushback. We have an economy that really relies on elections here.
Yeah.
Being first in the nation, like we get a lot of attention, and we've got like printing companies and consultants that rely on that sort of income, so they might have a problem with every 4 years.
Well, hopefully we get that back first in the nation. I would think that the president-elect will get it back for us.
Well, we never lost it.
Not on our
Democrats
terms.
chose not to participate,
Right.
and then they doubled down on their write-in Biden campaign, which worked out really, really well for them. They put millions into that campaign.
Yeah, and that was,
Sullivan,
and they, same thing when they first started running this whole thing, right? It was about abortion,
right?
And everybody else kept saying, including myself, saying to people, it's the economy, stupid, right? I mean, I understand the abortion side of it, and the people are really, I don't understand for my morals, but I do understand why they did that, because they were successful at it before.
Right, but they burnt that ship.
Yeah.
Right, because...
And it's a non-issue as far as Republicans are concerned at the national level, because that's what the Dobbs decision was. The Dobbs decision did not outlaw or stop abortion. It didn't go the other way either.
No.
The Dobbs decision gave the liberals everything they wanted. Your body, your choice. The federal government is not going to get involved either way.
Right.
And because of that, the president does not have anything to do with it. There's no executive order. There's nothing that the president can do, whether it was Kamala or Trump, for or against abortion. And that's the misinformation, is that everybody, is that the Democrats were fighting that the whole time, and Trump was like, it's not in my purview anymore.
And it came to this level. Like you saw, Donna was always on she was at the State House. She was like on preaching like abortion. They're going to take away our abortion rights, and that's Joyce did the same thing. Like that's all they did 8 mailers against me about I was pro-life, right? And I said to my son goes to Holy Family, and there's a priest there, Father Rick, that I like very much, and we were talking about it, and I said, if that's what I lose on, so be it. You know what I mean? I'm not changing that. But
pro-lifers, that's literally the hill that we're all willing to die on.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
But we decided, as a party, what we wanted to do was talk to young women and change the narrative and educate them and be there for them and support them, instead of saying we're going to ban all abortion, because it doesn't work. I mean, look at you. We ban heroin and look outside. Banning things just doesn't work, right? Educating, changing hearts and minds, and we were failing on that. We failed at communicating with young women.
Yeah, we did.
And what they kept doing was scaring them, saying, I saw this horrible commercial with these young women, and it was, 1 in 6 of us will get raped, and now we can't have an abortion. And I thought it was, instead of teaching instead of training your young women to not be in situations or have situational awareness or teach them how to defend themselves, we're making victims of them. And what a horrible thing to put on them and make them think that, right?
Right.
So, but here are the facts that I just, we had to just keep repeating the same facts over and over again. And for me, it was, Donna was the Senate president.
Right.
We had a majority of Democrats. They didn't change the abortion law in New Hampshire. We had a majority in the House and the Senate and a Republican governor. We didn't change the abortion law in New Hampshire. It stays at 24 weeks. Right. And we decided it was staying there because that's what the people had decided.
And that's been the case. The Republicans in this state, now I already addressed the national level, there's nothing we can do, but the Republicans in our state, we've decided that that's it. And if 6 months isn't long enough for you to figure out that you've been raped or that you don't want, then whether we agree with it or not, you still have that opportunity.
And there's exceptions for life of the mother.
And there's always exceptions.
That,
right?
Because if you're pro-life, you're pro-life. You don't want the mother to die carrying a child that isn't viable, right?
Exactly. And so there's not a state in the country that doesn't have an exception for the life of the mother. Not one. But you wouldn't know that, speaking with the mainstream media.
And the way that they used and manipulated women, right down from Roe. because I don't, I forget her real name, but she never had an abortion. They used her to push this law through.
And even she turned pro-life later in life.
She did.
It shows us that as we mature and as we understand the world around us, as we understand the miracle of life, we all come to that. And every one of you pro-abortionists, I don't care what you call yourself, pro-choice or whatever, when you're on your deathbed, you're going to be pro-life. I guarantee it.
Well, they also use some of the news stories about some young women who unfortunately died because of complications of childbirth or complications of pregnancy.
Right.
And they use those to say if they had only had an abortion or they were denied an abortion, and this is why. And when you looked at it, those weren't the cases. So they used the pain of these families that lost these young women to manipulate people into thinking this is what happened. In one case, it was they misdiagnosed sepsis from two different hospitals. Shame on them. They have a lawsuit. I'm sorry that woman died. That never should have happened to her. But it wasn't because of the abortion law in the state. And there was another one where the young woman died because she had over-the-counter abortion pills. And she had I can't remember the exact what exactly happened to her, but it resulted in her dying. And so that
any medication, I mean, there are unique circumstances there, but there's not a single medication on the planet that doesn't come with its own risks, right?
And they're mailing them out to young women who take these abortion pills alone.
Here, take this over the counter, and you don't need a prescription, and you can get it from your school nurse. And
they take them when they're alone.
Folks
and
who don't know your body and don't know your chemistry, and you can die from a single pill of anything that your school nurse gives you for free because you don't want to tell your parents.
But so they're mailing them to these young women who are taking them. You have to take 2 pills at 2 different times, or you take one, then you wait a few days, take the other. And when there's complications or there's hemorrhaging or anything, they're afraid to tell anybody what's happening, so they're dying alone, right? Because they're afraid to go to the mom and say, hey, I took an abortion pill and, there's something wrong. You see them, I saw one on TikTok where she's like, I'm in my bathroom, I'm in agony, I don't know what to do. She's reaching out to TikTok instead of the people around her because now she's afraid because no one knew that she did this, right? And it's really heartbreaking.
Very
and
sad.
they talk about the back alley abortions. These pills are really the modern day equivalent of that because these young women alone without medical care having abortions in their room alone, and it's just so sad.
That goes to another subject that we've been harping on, and that is parental rights, right?
Yeah.
Who's giving these minors these things without discussing it with the parents, right? You're a minor for a reason. It's because you are not mature enough, your brain is not developed enough to make life-altering decisions that like this, right? And so parental rights would have forced that abortion pill prescription to go through the parents, right? And then, there's all kinds of reasons why that shouldn't have happened, right? Never mind the dangers of it. I mean, these aren't safe pills.
No, the
pill is literally designed to kill a human life, a human life in the womb. But it is literally designed to kill humans, and you have teenagers taking it without prescription.
And if you don't know the gestational age of that baby, and you take that, it's very, very dangerous. And
it's going to get more dangerous the further along.
Yeah, and they don't necessarily know because they haven't had an ultrasound. There's so much danger to it, and I just feel like young women are being lied to, and it's going to be our jobs to talk to them, love them, and just try to help them and support them with all of the misinformation that they're getting. Right?
Yeah.
I was at church a couple weeks ago, and the priest was talking about abortion. He said, if you have had one, come see us. We want to pray with you. We want to help you, reconcile this and find forgiveness for yourself in it. And, we want to love you through it, basically. And I think that that's a message we need to keep sending to people. We don't hate people because they had an abortion, right?
They don't like that message.
Look at you differently. We want to help you through your circumstances and hope that someone is there for you if you find yourself in a circumstance like that again.
Yeah. What? How do you feel about the states taking over education? If he does, in fact, if he's able to.
I think it's the best thing if you look at Jimmy Carter put it in the Department of Education, right? And we have tanked since that interference with education. But they really withhold all the special ed money, and any money that comes down has so many things tied to it. So when I was a state rep, I put in a bill that said I want to see what it costs us to implement. What does it cost us to use the federal dollars? Because you can't just take them. You have to implement them in a certain way based on their guidelines. You have to order through the people they tell you to order through. You know, there's all kinds of people making money on the backside of this. And the bill got killed because every expert came forward and said, we cannot tell you this number. This number doesn't exist. We cannot unbraid this and tell you like this much money comes from the federal government and this is what we use it for and it costs us this much to implement it. And that's a problem. Like you need to have transparency. That's still tax dollars, and we need to have transparency in how we spend every single dollar. So I think it would be a very good thing for the money to come back to us and get rid of the Department of Education. You're going to have to figure out the special education piece,
sure,
which I'm sure they're already talking about. But there's really no reason. There's no reason to have
See,
that.
this would put, you know, choice right in place in the state. Give the parents an opportunity to pick the best school for their child.
Yeah. So I was talking to a reporter the other day, and I had this revelation that, you know, through our conversations, like, well, they don't want, like, what about universal education freedom? They don't want rich people to use tax dollars to educate their child. And I went, wait a minute.
But
If a wealthy person, but if a wealthy person sends their child to public school, they are using those tax dollars.
Sure.
They're okay with that. Wealthy people can use public school and we can pay for it. Wealthy people just can't take those tax dollars and use them in a different school because that's the problem, right?
Right.
It's the same tax dollars. So why does it matter how wealthy people are using them? Or should wealthy people not receive anything from the government? Like you pay a ton of taxes, but we're not giving you anything back, right?
Right.
So
I grew up in a very wealthy town, Greenwich, Connecticut. You know, so every time I say that, people roll their eyes, thinking I must be on the right side of the tracks, but I wasn't. But the rich people in that town sent them to our public school because it was like a private school.
Right.
You know, we had great teachers, great coaches, you know, great mentors, and that's where. And we had a private school in town, Brunswick, it was called, which was for the wealthy as well. More of the kids that could have been going there went to our high school. And I mean, so what difference does it make?
Right.
I mean, they're still paying the taxes on it. But I would, you know, I think we'd have a big job ahead of us. I really do. If that does happen, it's going to be tough to put all that stuff in place. However, we have like Jody Underwood and people like that who are, and Kate Baker, Deemers,
I'm
and they've done.
oversimplifying this a little bit, but shouldn't it be as simple as, okay, now we're no longer going to send those tax dollars to the feds, and we're going to get them back?
Yeah.
Apparently, we have a
Maybe
call.
Robert's
Good. We
calling.
might have an answer. What was the question now?
Good evening. You're on Rock Paper Hand Grenades.
Hello, Josh. My name is Robert. I'd like to speak to Victoria, please.
I am here.
Yeah, Victoria, I just wanted to commend you and thank you for your tenacity and plugging away, and as you have, and you know, you won the election. And to me, it's kind of against Susie, it's kind of like a story of David and Goliath, you know.
Absolutely.
And, no, I just really respect you.
Well.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Okay, have a good night, guys.
Thank you, Robert. You
Thanks for
too.
the call.
Thank you.
So what did that cost you for that call?
So it's going to be. So I think I need to change my middle name to Tenacity.
Well, you know, that's really, I can remember, and we've talked about this often, I can remember meeting her many years ago when she first got elected. And I had a good friend of mine in who was thinking about running for president. He wasn't sure yet, Governor Robert Ehrlich from Maryland, who was also a congressman. And I invited her to come to that. And from then on, I said, okay, she's not afraid to ask questions. She doesn't always like the answer, and she may say something else. She's going to do well, and I really believe that. I mean, you still have a future ahead of you. But this was I was so excited. This was such a big win. I went to sleep too, by the way. Donna woke me up and she said, "You're not going to believe this." And I'm thinking, "Oh, don't tell me Joyce Craig won." And she said, "No, Victoria won." I said, "You must have dreamt that. You must have fell asleep in front of the TV."
Thanks for the faith you had in me.
Well,
Then you didn't.
but I was so excited. I mean, you can't tell me that most of even your good friends weren't shocked when they found this out.
So I will say, Tammy Garthwaite was all in. Brittany Ping was all in from the beginning. Keith Murphy was all in from the beginning. They really believed. My husband was like, "You've got this one," right? He was all in from the beginning. But so I did have people around me that absolutely believed I could do it, or I probably wouldn't have worked as hard, honestly, because it was a lot. It was a lot to look at her finances and be like, "Oh my God, whatever," But we made what we didn't have in funds, we made up for in labor, and that's really how we did it.
Yeah.
And I did, like I said, I did have those people that were great supports, and if I'd have a down day, Tammy would be, because fundraising phone calls are hard. They can really suck the soul out of you.
Yep.
And especially when you're getting like no.
Yeah.
Did she call you and concede? Did you get the concession call? Really?
Yep. I unfortunately wasn't home when she called.
No.
Did you call her back?
I did call her back.
Okay, good.
She didn't answer. So she did call and concede, and I called her back, and I said, thank you for the phone call.
Yeah.
And I said, if you see anything that you think needs legislative attention in our district,
let me know.
I'm happy to work on legislation with you.
Yeah.
And so
good for you. That's
and
great.
I didn't tell anybody that she did concede for a couple of days, because she had stated that she was going to put out a statement, and I wanted to give her that opportunity. I didn't see the statement, and people were asking me, and so I finally said it, because they were getting they wanted to go at her a little bit. So I said no, she did concede, and I made a statement that she had.
Yeah.
So she absolutely did.
Yeah,
so
I was excited, and it wasn't like I didn't think you could do it, but it was more like I couldn't vote for her,
No, so I did, and I think all the state reps that I worked with here, we all felt like it was sort of the time for us.
Yeah.
We all worked really hard.
And Mark Warden came back.
Yeah.
Because he left and he's back now.
Yeah, he's awesome, and he and I worked together quite a bit. He was very. I should have put him in that group too, because he was very supportive of me from the beginning.
Yeah.
And that's why I hate naming people, because I always forget somebody.
Of course you do.
But I did have a crew around me, and Tammy could sort of tell when I was getting frustrated, a little down, and she was like, "Listen, brush it off. Go do something else for the day. We get back to it tomorrow." And it worked. And as long as I was sort of around people, I was okay. It was just the fundraising phone calls they're always tough.
They're very hard.
This election, I think, was tougher for a lot of folks to raise money, just because the governor's
economy,
race took so much, right, and the economy.
Yep.
But we raised enough to get it done in the end, and sort of. I got some momentum toward the end on fundraising, which lifted me up, of course. Right. And I just kept chugging away at it, and that's all I can say is that we just kept working, even when I have a down moment, sort of lick your wounds and get out there and just keep working.
Yeah, you had a good team behind you. People who understood this because they've been in office.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
I had one of my sons, because my son abandoned me for college, and my other one's in in high school.
And also ended up in the ED at Elliott. That was, we won't talk about that, but that was the funniest thing that happened.
So my son's friend Cole, I hired him, and he was my only. Tammy volunteered. She volunteered all of her time. So I had one staffer. And we were out there. He's like, "You ready to work?" Like, "We're ready to work." So like he pulled me along too. So he was awesome. Cole, you've got a great future in anything that you want to do. But yeah, so I'm at home one night. He texts me. It's like midnight, right?
Yeah.
And says, "Do you know that your sons are in the ER?" I'm like, "Yes."
Sons.
So
plural.
Yeah. Oh, this is great.
So my son. So one of my sons is a blacksmith, and they are around swords often, and somehow he was handling a sword, not paying attention, and he cut himself. So he didn't tell me that he cut himself. He came, it was really late, and he went downstairs. He flew past me going downstairs, and then my other son, Buddy, came down.
Oh, so this took place
at home. Yeah. So,
oh yeah. I saw. Go ahead.
Yeah. So then
he was injured and left the house.
So he went in the basement very quickly, and I didn't know. It was like weird because he flew behind me to the basement, and then Buddy comes down and he goes, the older brother, right? He's trying to rat him out without ratting him out. So he said, "Now I know what the anatomy of the inside of a hand looks like." And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Oh, don't look at Seamus's hand." I'm like, "What happened?" I'm like, "Seamus, get up here." And he's got his hand like this, right? He goes, "It's okay, Mom." I said, "Let me see it." He's like, "I'm just going to go to the emergency room." And I said, "Let me see if you need to go." He goes, "Believe me, I need to go." So, it was 11:30. So I'm like in my pajamas. I'm like, "All right, I'm going to just get changed. I'm coming with you." And so they leave. And I'm on the phone. I'm calling Buddy. I'm like, "What? Why did you guys leave?" And he's like, "Seamus does not want you to see this." He said, he's 18 now, Seamus, and Buddy's almost 20. So I said, "You sure?" He's like, "Mom, like really, this is bad." And you know, I said, "I have been with you through all of these things. I don't get like squeamish about it." He's like, "Yeah, but you're not gonna want to see what they have to do." So I'm home and I'm saying to my husband, like, "I feel like we should be there." And he goes, "Just let them take care of it." So then, I get all the phone calls. What's our insurance card number? Because they're adults, but not really. And JP's like, "So it looks like they're taking him into trauma now." And he's up
because I was in there with Donna, with my wife, and we were there from 10 o'clock to 5 the next morning.
So he's updating me like throughout.
Yeah, I'm telling her what's going on, and I was thinking about walking over there and saying something. And I said, "Nah, I'm just gonna. I can watch what he's doing now that he doesn't know I'm there."
Apparently, he was trying to put. The sheath was loose, and he was trying to fix it, and it slid. And instead of letting the sheath go, he tried to grab it and grab the blade. But the doctor said that because he cinched it so much when it first happened, that it sort of started to close on the inside on its own. By the time they got,
It's not a fun place.
Basically,
to have
super glued it.
Yeah, they put super glue on and sent home.
And wrapped it and said, we can't. Like, it's a hard place. We can stitch it, but you could lose mobility. So let's just. You did a good job. Let's just see if this, just continue to take care of it. So, of course, she's playing soccer on Monday.
Fix any veins or anything?
He was so lucky. And I keep telling him that, like, this could have been so much worse. You were so lucky. And it just basically cut the web and stopped there.
Yeah.
So it didn't, it didn't get anything that would have impacted the way because he's a bass player too. So
right.
It didn't impact the way his hand moves.
No. So it was his right hand though, right?
Yeah. So it took a couple of weeks, but.
So he was standing up in the ER with his hand like this. Because he didn't want to put it down, but he's standing like this and he's trying to, he's got his phone out with one hand, as kids can do. I don't know how the hell they do that.
Texting left-handed.
Yeah, texting left-handed.
Because I said, keep your hand above your heart. Keep your hand above your heart.
And that's what he was doing. I was wondering what he's doing. I thought, I don't know what he was doing, but it was kind of interesting.
So Buddy said.
Because you never know where.
Well, Buddy said, I don't know, Mom. Because Seamus is sort of my shy one, right? Obviously doesn't take after his mother. And Buddy said he's in there and he's like cracking jokes. The nurses are cracking up. The doctors are cracking up. And I said it must have been like nerves. Like it must have been nerves, and it just like was his.
Every time he came out of the room, they were laughing.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on in there?
So all is well, and I told them, see, even though we live in the city, people know you, and my friends are always looking out for you.
Exactly.
They're always looking out for you. You can't get away with anything.
Now we need sword control laws.
We need,
No.
We need boys to pay attention.
Exactly.
But that's with a forge and all the other things he does. Like that was his first injury, so I'm gonna take it. It was a win, lesson learned, and that's it.
Nice.
Yep.
This time just flew by.
Is it time?
It's
darn near, almost. We still have a little time.
So as Senator-elect, what's on your agenda? Do you have any?
Yeah.
Like what committees do you want to be on? Or?
So I'm still sorting that out because I'm on the Oversight Commission for Children's Services. So, that's really important to me. Education is important to me, of course. Housing is important to me. So I think you get two committees. I'm going to have to take a look at them and see, where maybe I do one that impacts children, and then housing, because it does also impact children.
Sure.
But housing is really important to hear.
Yeah.
Don't you, as senator, you have to be on more than
two?
You get two.
They get two, but they have to be involved with a lot more than two.
Yeah, because there's a lot of stuff for 24 people to do.
And everybody works.
Yeah, lots of hours.
Yeah, so Sharon was like, I know everybody has a job, so we're going to be very, with the way we structure things is going to be really important. Yep. So, that's going to be important as to which committee I'm on too, which is most time, the time consuming. I was on the House Education Committee. That was 3 or 4 days a week. Sometimes it was 5 days a week, but it's not the same caseload as the legislative load in the Senate because you guys have weeded out a lot of the bad bills by the time they come over. So you're looking at a lot less legislation at the end of the day. But mental health is really important to me, and that's not more money that needs to go into it, but we really need to, as a state, look at what we're doing. It's too often that people are medicated, especially children,
Yep.
and they don't. So I deal with a lot of people that are homeless or in recovery or have been incarcerated, and when you talk to the men, a lot of women too, but I mostly deal with men. It's about trauma, unresolved trauma. And it comes out in self-medicating, it comes out in anger, it comes out in all kinds of ways. And so just giving medication doesn't resolve that. And a lot of the men that I work with were given Adderall or Ritalin at very young ages.
Oh, wow.
And then it doesn't work the same when they go through puberty and they start medicating and they found heroin and other
Yep.
stimulants, right? So how we're addressing mental health here, but also it's just not available. Right, so we've got kids that just can't get mental health treatment. They're suicidal and they can't get it. I had a gentleman in my sober home who did all the right things. Like he was under the care of physicians for mental health, and one of his medications wasn't working, and he acknowledged it. He knew it. He needed help. He went and he tried to get help. They couldn't get him in, and it ended up that he just was incapable at one point to make decisions any longer because his mind was now not right. He ended up at CMC. They ended up sending him to the Cypress Center, but he did everything he needed to do to get the care that he knew he needed.
He still couldn't
get it.
Yeah.
And so the medication kept wearing off, and he ended up in a place where he couldn't make rational decisions for himself.
Yeah.
And we were able to help him, luckily, but you shouldn't be in that position. If you need help, it should be there for you.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a couple of different things we have to look at. But that is really what's impacting our homelessness, what's impacting our opioid addiction, what's our kids are struggling so much with mental health because of the way adults handled COVID.
Yeah.
And so that's something that we need to address for the health and safety of our state.
Okay. So when does the session start? I mean, you're having meetings, but things don't start till the beginning of the year, right?
So we can put in legislation now.
Yep.
The inauguration is December 4th, and we hit the road running.
Oh, really?
Nice.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was that
Yeah.
early.
So we're only a couple of weeks out.
Yes.
Nice.
And it's still so weird. I'm really excited. I think I'm in the right place at the right time for myself.
I think you're in the right place and right time for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Not just yourself.
Yeah.
So
Well, thank
understand that, there's a lot of people out there who are really rooting for you.
I know they were.
That
is just such
and
an
very
awesome
excited
feeling.
that you won, but we're worried that maybe you weren't going to.
And so regardless of the beatings that the Democrats, and my friend Kim Moran had put out the day after, the abuse that she has taken at the hands of Ray Buckley over the years. This is just such a great vindication for her.
Yep.
But it really is. I like to stay on social media because of the people that are out there, the people that support me, the people that talk to me every day. We've formed relationships together, and I know a lot of folks are rooting for me, and you were in my corner, and you celebrated with me, which I just want to thank you for that, because it was awesome to have you all there every step of the way. And I don't have to do the fighting for myself anymore, because I've got all these folks out there that do it for me, really, when they beat me up, right? They do it. So it gives me the time to just concentrate on keeping them informed. And I've made a commitment to use my social media pages to let people know what's happening with legislation, anything that they need to know about for the hearings that are important. I can't do all 1,000 pieces of legislation, but the things that are really, I think, are going to be important or controversial.
So you just got to get used to being called senator.
I'm always just Victoria.
It's awesome.
All right, so come
you.
back in a couple of months
I'd love
and let
to.
us know how it's going. Give us a
Give
progress
them a
report.
legislative update.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be great.
See what's going on.
That'd be
All right.
awesome.
And we'll see you next week. We are out of time already.
Welcome to another edition of the Will and Joe Show. Will is literally flying in. He's literally at the airport. He got in on time, and sure enough, they can't find his bag. Why? Because he has a show at 7 o'clock, and you know how all the wonderful, magical things in the world work. So Victoria Sullivan, our new state senator from Manchester and representing Litchfield, was just doing the show before us. And I asked her to stay on for a second or two so we can enjoy this moment. I know...
you were the first one to call it.
I was. And the reason why, well, first of all, I always said that it was going to really, really come up to Litchfield, right? Because this was the election where this was families.
Yeah.
What the Democrats have done over the last 4 years has literally affected families in many, many ways, right? Men and women's sports, all of their social conditioning and changes, and then, of course, inflation, the cost to, for oil to heat your home and to eat, everything. And Litchfield's a bedroom community.
Yeah.
And boy, did you hit it out of the park there. Where else did you hit it out of the park in Manchester? You won your own ward?
I did win my own ward.
All right, which is very strong Democrat ward. You beat Donna Soucy.
Yeah.
She's been in for how many terms? I don't know.
12 years.
12 years straight, and you just upset the apple cart.
Yeah, and I won 6 and 8. I won 6, 8, 9 in Manchester, and then Litchfield.
What time did you find out that you had won?
1:05.
1:05 in the morning.
Will actually called me and said, you won. And I said,